Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 5 for year 3 maths. Today we're going to be having a look at arithmetic questions. Just like yesterday, if you can make sure you've got a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil or a whiteboard and a whiteboard pen so that we can pause the video at different places and you can work through some questions by yourself. So here's an example of a question that you might come across in an arithmetic paper. The first one here is 143 add 10. Now some people might be tempted to do this using a written method, but what I want to show you today is that actually there's a much easier and a much simpler way of doing it. And I'll demonstrate it to you using place value counters. So here's the number 143 shown in place value counters. You can see that 143 is made up of 100, 4 tens, that's my 40, and 3 ones. Well, if I'm adding 10, then all I'm actually doing is adding an extra 10 to the tens that I've already got. So I can drag in a new 10 over here. So you can see that I've added a 10. My ones haven't changed. Now, because I'm adding something bigger than them, the ones are never going to change because the tens have a higher value than the ones. I've now got 5 tens and I've got 100. So actually the answer to 143 add 10 is 153. And you can see there was no need for me to work that out using a written method. Same again if I show you this one, but this time I'm subtracting 10. So here I've got 234 take away 10. Here's my 200s, my 30 made up of 3 tens and my 4 ones. To take 10 away, I'm simply going to cross it out so that I can see. And again, the ones haven't changed, but you need to be careful. Sometimes you will have to change your hundreds, you'll have to regroup. So in this case, 234 take away 10, well, I've still got 200s. Instead of 3 tens, I've now got 2 tens. And I've still got my 4 ones, so I've got 224. And the same thing occurs when you are adding and subtracting 100, or it might be 200 or 300. You can use the same strategy. So here's 215, add 100. So I'll show the place value counters, but I'll also show you with the number sentence itself. So if I'm adding 100, I'm going to underline the hundreds column because this is the place value that's going to change. Okay, if I show you with the place value counters, you can see that I'm going to add in 100. So as we can see, the tens and the ones, they haven't changed. They've not been affected by what I've done, but instead I've added 100. And now, instead of having 200, I've got 3 in my hundreds column. I've still got 110. And I've still got 5 ones. So 215 add 100 is going to give me 315. Here we've got a subtraction. So 312 take away 100. So I'm going to underline my hundreds column because it's 100 that I'm subtracting. My tens and my ones aren't going to change. And to show that I'm taking away 100, I'm going to cross one out. So I've got 200 left. Got 110 and I've still got 2 ones. So 312 take away 100 is 212. So here are some for you to have a look at. Obviously you've not got place value counters at home, so what I would suggest you do is you underline the different place value digits as you go. If you really needed to, you could draw them as a place value counters and then cross them out, but I think most of you should be okay to have a little go just using the place value columns. So pause the video, have a little go and see how you get on with these questions. Okay, should we see how you've got on? So 183 add 10. First of all, just so you can see, I will label my hundreds, my tens and my ones. Now if I'm adding 10, I'm going to underline my tens column. I know my ones, they're not going to change. But I'm going to keep an eye on my hundreds because they might do. So if I had 8 tens, I'm going to add 1 more 10 to that. I'm going to have 9 tens in my tens. So I'm going to have 100, 9 tens and still 3 ones, so 193. Moving on to the second one, if I'm adding 100, I'm going to underline my hundreds column. Instead of having a 2 in the hundreds, this time I'm going to have 3 hundreds because there's going to be 1 greater. The 8, my 8 tens stays the same, and my 1 for my 1 ones also stays the same. With the subtractions, and this one I'm going to take away 10, so I'm going to underline my tens column. Now I've got 9 tens. If I take away 1 10, that's going to leave me with 8 tens. So I'm going to have 100 and 87. And on the final one, I'm subtracting 100, so I'll underline my hundreds column. I've got 300s, take away 100. Well, 1 less than 3 is 2, so I'll have 284 because my 10s and my 1s haven't changed. So well done with those. Let's move on to some slightly different questions. So these are missing number sentences, which can be a little bit tricky if you're not sure whether it's an addition or subtraction. So 84 add something equals 132. So what I'm trying to work out is what number I add to 84 to get to my 132. Now, some people might do that in their head, but other people might need to use a different method. So what I'm going to use is a number line. And actually, this is really similar to the work we did yesterday when we were finding different amounts of change. Because I'm starting with the smallest number, and I'm jumping up to the biggest number. And it's important to remember with an addition that the largest number always comes at the end of your number sentence because you're adding those two things together. So I'm starting with 84 and I want to jump up to find the total of 132. So I'm going to use my number ones just like I did yesterday, except today I don't need to worry about pounds and pence, I'm just dealing with numbers. So from 84, I want to jump to my next multiple of 10. And my next multiple of 10 after 84 is going to be 90. And I can use my number ones to think, well, what do I add to 4 to get to the next 10? Well, 4 add 6 is 10. So a jump of 6 will get me to 90. From 90, I'm going to jump to the next 100. And again, you can use number ones. Well, what do I add to 90 to get to 100? You add 10. And from 100, I want to get to 132. Well, that is a jump of 32. Okay, some of you might want to break that up into a jump of 30 and then a jump of 2, and that's absolutely fine. Or you can do it a slightly bigger jump like I've done. So these are my jumps to find my difference, but I've now got to add them together. Well, 32 add 10 is 42. Add the 6 gives me a total of 48. So 84 add 48 is 132. So the 48 is my missing number. So number lines are a really easy way to do addition number sentences. If we have a look at the second one here, we've got 54 take away something equals 26. Now, do you remember before with the addition, I said that the biggest number always comes at the end, well, not necessarily after the end, but after the equal sign. With a subtraction number sentence, the largest number is always going to come at the start. So I'm starting with 54 and I'm taking away something to give me my 26. Now you could start on a number line and jump backwards from 54, but that's actually quite tricky. It's much easier to do the same method and to jump up from your 26 to your 54. Both ways, I'm just finding the difference to see what the gap is. So from 26 to 54. So as always, I'm going to jump to my next multiple of 10. The next multiple of 10 after 26 is 30. And I can use my number ones. Well, what do I add to 6 to get to the next 10? Well, that's a jump of 4. From 30, I could jump to 40, or I might actually have to jump all the way to 50. And my number ones will still help here, because I can think, well, what do you add to 3 to get to 5? Well, that's 2. So what do I add to 30 to get to 50? That's going to be a jump of 20. And then from 50 to 54 is going to be a jump of 4. And as before, I can add them together. 20 add 4 is going to give me 28. So my missing number here is 28. 54 take away 28 gives me 26. So as I said, it's really important to remember with these number sentences where the largest number comes. So thinking about an addition number sentence, you've got two smaller amounts being added together to make one larger amount. And in subtraction, you're starting with your largest amount and you're taking something away to leave you with something else. So I'd like to pause the video here, have a little go at these two number sentences, see if you can find the missing numbers again using a number line, and we'll come back together in a second. Okay, let's have a look at these two questions then. So we're starting with 63 add something equals 112. So 112 is going to be my largest number, so I'm going to put that at the end of my number line. I'm starting with my 63, and we're going to jump up to find the difference. So from 63 to 112. So the next multiple of 10 after 63 is going to be 70. So that's going to be my first jump. Again, number ones, 63. So what do I add to 3 to get to the next 10? Well, 3 add 7 is 10. So a jump of 7 will get me to 70. From 70, I want to jump to 100. What do I add to 7 to get to 10? Well, that's 3. So what do I add to 70 to get to 100? And that's going to be a jump of 30. And again, from 100 to 112 is going to be a jump of 12. Some of you, again, might want to jump to 10 and then jumped on another 2, and that's absolutely fine. So we can add them together. 30, add the 12. Well, you might want to do 30, add 10 is 40, add the 2 is 42. Add the 7, it's going to give you an answer of 49. Well done if you got that one right. On to the subtraction. In this one, we're going to again jump up from the smallest number to the biggest number. With a subtraction, the largest number comes first, and we're going to jump from 123 to 150. So 123 is going to come at the start of my number line, and 150 is going to come at the end. And I want to jump to my next multiple of 10. The next multiple of 10 after 123 is 130. Now, sometimes you might get a little bit more confused by the fact there's hundreds in here, but it works in exactly the same way as before. If I use my number ones, what do I add to 3 to get to the next 10? And that's always going to be 7. So this is going to be a jump of 7 to get me to 130. From 130 to 150 is going to be a jump of 20, because we know 3 add 2 is 5, so 30 add 20 is 50, or 130 add 20 is 150. So 20 add 7 is going to give you a difference of 27. Well done if you got that one correct. So the final thing we're going to look at today is fractions. Fractions are quite commonly found in your arithmetics, and it's really important that we try and remember what a fraction actually is. So here we've got the fractions a half, a third, and a quarter. Now, when we're talking about fractions, we're always talking about part of a whole. So you've got a whole amount that's been split into equal parts. With a half, you've got things split into 2 equal parts, and you've got 1 part out of the 2 equal parts. With a third, your whole is split into 3 equal parts, and you've got 1 part out of the 3 parts. And when we've got a quarter, your whole is split into 4 parts, and you have 1 part out of 4 parts. So if we look at that with numbers, we've got this. So a half of 10, and I've drawn 10 counters to help you understand and to show you what happens when you halve 10. So I've drawn a little bar here for us, just to help us, because bars and fractions go together really, really well. Now, as you know with a bar, here I've got my whole. Now, my whole is the same as my total of how many things I've got all together. Now, I know that my total is 10, and I can see it here, and I could also count it if I wanted to in my dots. So here is 10. And underneath you can see where I've got my 2 equal parts. And what I'm doing is I'm sharing my 10 counters equally into 2 groups, or I'm doing 10 divided by 2. And I can show you that with the counters. So here we go, split them up, make sure they're even. There we go. So now if I count how many counters I've got in 1 half, I can see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Half of 10 is 5. I've split my 10 into 2 equal groups of 5. So half of 10 is 5. Here we've got 2 different questions. So we've got a third of 12. Now, how many groups am I going to have? And if I'm splitting things into thirds, I'm going to have 3 groups. So here I've got a bar already split into 3 groups. What's my whole? Well, my whole is 12 because that's how many counters I've got altogether. And I'm going to evenly group them into groups of 3. So I'm doing 12 and I'm sharing it into 3 groups. So here we go, split them equally. Okay, can you count my counters? How many counters have I got in each of my thirds? Well, I've got 4, I've got 4, and I've got 4. Now remember, they're all the same because when we're dealing with fractions, the parts are all equal. So a third of 12, so 12 shared into 3 groups is going to give me 4. Here I've got a quarter of 8. If I've got a quarter, how many equal groups am I splitting my counters into? I'm splitting them into 4. What's my whole? Well, my whole is 8. And I'm going to now divide them or share them equally into those 4 parts. Okay, they're all equal. I'm going to say, well, how many have I got in each part? Well, you can clearly see in each quarter, I've got 2 counters. So a quarter of 8 is 2. My 8 has been shared into 4 equal groups. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. So here are some for you to have a little go at. Now, if you're good at your times tables, you might be able to do this in your head, which is brilliant. Well done for that. If not, you might want to go and find some little buttons or some bits of pasta or anything you've got lying around your house that you can use to actually physically share into groups. Just make sure you know that your groups are going to be equal and you're going to make sure that you know how many parts you've got. So pause the video, have a little go, and we'll go through the answers. Okay, so here we've got half of 24. That means I'm splitting my 24 into 2 equal groups. Well, 24 divided by 2. Well, half of 24 is 12. So 2 groups of 12 give you your 24. If I'm doing a third of 18, I'm dividing 18 into 3 equal groups. So how many have I got? I've got 6. You'll notice that here we've got, look, 3 times 6 is 18. 2 times 12 is 24, so you can use your times tables to help you. And a quarter of 12, I'm splitting my 12 into 4 equal groups. Well, 12 divided by 4 is 3. How do you get on? If you're struggling, you can always come back to using those concrete resources, so bits of pasta, buttons, whatever you've got lying around your house to give you a hand today. Now, the other types of questions that you might find on an arithmetic are those calculations, so just straight addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And rather than me going through them on here for you, I'm just going to remind you that on both the Year 3 class page and the Year 3/4 class page, you've got this tab at the top here. Now this tab gives you a link to some videos that Mr. Tompkinson has made on using those addition, subtraction, multiplication and division methods. So if you get a little bit stuck on any of those today, then what you can do is go on to our school website, watch the videos, and that will hopefully remind you of the different methods that we use.